So I request Mrs. Shruti ma'am to introduce to our today's chief guest. Shruti ma'am, over to you.
Good morning all. I am Shruti HG, Assistant Professor, Civil Engineering Department, ATMEC, Mysore. I welcome you all for this 5 days FDP on implementation of National Education Policy 2020 from 24th to 28th January 2022. It's a great pleasure for me to introduce Session 1 speaker, Colonel B. Venkat. Colonel B. Venkat is a serving Army officer from the technical branch, having done his mechanical engineering from Army institutes. He is having more than 30 years of service experience and served in all possible appointments of command, staff, and instructional. The officer is presently on deputation with AICTE and is handling faculty development, related issues, and release of grants through AICTE AQIS schemes. The officer has a unique distinction of representing India as its technical military attaché to Russia. The officer also handles AICTE's quality initiatives like NIPPT, National Initiative for Technical Teachers Training, which is mandatory for the purpose of regularization and promotion to all teachers, implementation of examination reforms and processes of NEP 2020. It is indeed a great pleasure to welcome you for this FDP, sir. I welcome you, sir.
Thank you, Shruti ma'am, for introducing to our today's speaker. So I welcome you, sir. Over to you, sir.
Good morning, sir, and thank you for giving me a chance to be speaking. Pleasure to be coming on your virtual platform. Am I clearly audible now, sir?
Yes, sir. Clearly audible, sir. Thank you.
Wonderful to have this thing. Great day to start, first of all, on a Monday morning. And a good activity initiated by you people, and it gives me immense pleasure, first of all, to be complimenting you for actually taking on a subject from ATME College of Engineering, Mysuru, for the National Education Policy. Subject so very well spoken at multiple times, but the issue happens to be that at every time the subject has been spoken, it has been spoken in isolation, to say the least, wherein people have not got connected with the subjects proper. So having said this and having understood this, that this particular topic is already in the public domain from 29th of July 2020, let us move ahead from that, and let us, as we discuss all these issues, let us first be discussing very clearly the policy guidelines which are coming out, and then subsequently, along with the policy, let us also talk about multiple activities which have happened towards implementing the policy. The whole idea being, today at this stage we should be in a position to understand that where we are and what all activities have happened towards implementing the policy. So having said this, let us first come on straight away. The policy is applicable for two aspects. One is school education, that is the classes, school, what we understand, and second is the higher education. It is important for us to commence with that we should be understanding what is school education, and then from there we should be in a position to move ahead to the higher education, because it is the same set of students who are going to be coming for your connectivity later. The school education has graduated from 10+2 to 5334. All of you have been hearing 5334. All of you must have heard this new set of combination. But what is the implication, why it was done, and what is the reason behind it is something which each one of us now should be very clearly looking at. The reason for this particular activity to come out as a 5334 was that first 5 now comes as called as a foundational stage. That is 3 years of pre-primary in classes 1 and 2. Very important also simultaneously to understand that the purpose of this was to initially introduce education in regional languages. And the moment you introduce education in regional languages, ladies and gentlemen, that is going to be having a great impetus in making our students come back into the education system, which otherwise had broken down because of an existing language barrier. And number two, simultaneously, this also gives us a great impetus and a boost to the subject specific, which is called as that students who are in that age bracket, psychometrically, they are much better in a position to understand the subject in case it has been taught in their regional languages. So having understood the dynamics as to why regional language should come in. The regional languages have now been made mandatory at this age level. And immediately, if I connect you to higher education, it's a very wonderful connect when I tell you to higher education, that at this level, if you connect it to higher education, the education system at higher education also allows now education to be given in regional languages. If education has to be given in regional languages, there has been certain wherewithals, mechanisms in place which needs to be implemented for the purposes of making this particular system in function. And for making this particular system in function, AICTE has already amended their approval handbook, and we have allowed an additional 30/60 supernumerary seats to be taken in the regional languages, subject to the particular department being NBA accredited. But at least it's a start for additional seats to be given for the purposes of taking education. And this education cannot be provided unless and until it is supported by certain activities which are seen moving parallel along. And these activities which are then moving parallelly along happen to be two initiatives which AICTE has taken. Number one happens to be translation of Swayam online MOOCs courses. Two is original textbook writing followed by their translation. So as we speak, the original textbook writing for undergraduate first year and diploma first year is already over, based on outcome-based education and attainment of graduate attributes. And simultaneously, they have been translated into multiple regional languages. And the books were then presented to the nation on 7th of January by the Honorable Minister. So these are the activities which have happened alongside. It's very easy to understand a policy, but I think, and I personally feel, alongside policy, now is the time that you and me should be in a more position to understand, along with policy, what are the implementable points. So these are the implementable points which are happening as far as this portion is concerned.
Sir, is my voice audible, sir?
Now it's okay.
Yes, sir. Now it's okay, sir.
Okay. Then I was at the preparatory stage, that is the classes 3, 4, and 5. And when you are at classes 3, 4, and 5, at preparatory stage, the significance of classes 3, 4, and 5 have to be very clearly be appreciated and understood. The significance of classes 3, 4, and 5 is the student still gets to pursue his education in regional languages. That is continuing of promotion of regional languages. One should also appreciate and understand why the regional languages are being promoted and appreciated, because of also another very important aspect which happens to be increase in the gross enrollment ratio. Gross enrollment ratio today is 27.1. That means for every 100 students who are eligible outside to pursue higher education, we only have 27.1 students who are pursuing education. Now, this is a gross underutilization of availability of human resources of this age bracket to pursue education. And this is exactly what needs to be tackled. This is exactly what needs to be made higher. National education policy talks about making this to 50, that is 50%. And for making this to 50%, there are going to be multiple activities which needs to be carried out. These are only one activity which today we are talking. This is promotion of regional languages. Alongside this, you will get to understand that there are many more regional languages promotional and activities which will be then taking forward to make this scheme a success, initiative a success. So as we move forward, it is still permitted to continue education in regional languages, even when we talk about classes 3, 4, and 5. That is one. Number two, when we come now here at this bracket, it is called an initial introduction of skill. Now, a skill is something which we people together should very well appreciate and understand. What is skill for school education is called as vocational activity for higher education. And having said the vocational activity for higher education, we people need to very clearly be understanding that introduction of this activity at this age bracket is going to bring him a cohesive education, which is called as a holistic education for the purposes of graduation. And hence the students at this age bracket will be given an exposure to skill-based activity. Very clearly, I will tell you as to what is now vocational education. Vocational education, as per the National Education Policy mandate, speaks and says that there will be no difference between general education and vocational education for the purposes of any differentiation, let it be any activity or course. So these two things have to be brought together. And how can you bring these two things together? These can be brought together only if the learning outcomes of vocational and the general education are made at par. And for making learning outcomes of vocational and general education at par, if need be, there will be certain credit-based, skill activity-based courses which will be introduced into the general education. And as far as vocational education is concerned, there will be introduction of certain bridge courses to make both of them at par. That is what is the understanding of bringing at par of a vocational activity and a skill-based activity. National level activities are phenomenal, wherein there's going to be a National Commission for Integration of Vocational Education, whose task and mandate is going to be, actually speaking, aligning the outcomes of NHEQF and NSQF towards making the outcomes at par, and not only making it at par with national occupation standards, but with international occupation standards. See, these are all the text which is there in the national education policy. What we need to understand, the implication of this is that a student who is going to come out will be having skill in him right from the time that he was in school. And for this, multiple activities are being initiated. AICTE has very recently proposed, or for that matter, of an existing scheme called as Karma, wherein we are now going ahead and promoting that AICTE approved institutes, infrastructure, laboratories, the soft skill, the training methodology existing to be utilized, to be given to the many school dropouts who could not pursue education after class 10. So getting these students back into the mainstream education and giving them a focused exposure on skill is also something which is mandatory, required. Towards this, AICTE, in collaboration with multiple other agencies and becoming an assessment organization, we will also be coming forward and offering our services. So this is exactly what you call bringing back students into the education system who earlier had to pursue a dropout. This is another ways and means of doing it. And very interesting subject also, which each one of you should understand, has come into play here. And the interesting subject which I wish to tell you people is that there has been a terminology which is called as Lok Vidya, which has been found mentioned in the national education policy. Now, what is Lok Vidya? A Lok Vidya is nothing but our traditional regional knowledge. And when we talk of traditional regional knowledge, Lok Vidya talks about the thing which our artisans are possessing and they continuously keep giving from generations to generations. But for whatever reasons, it has not been structured into the mainstream, and that is the reason that these activities over a period of time are seen as dying. This is a great opportunity.
Excuse me, sir, Venkat, sir.
Yes.
Sir, just to confirm, have you shared any screen, sir? Share or slide?
No. In fact, I should have said that in the beginning only.
So what I thought is maybe it's not visible here. That's what I thought.
No, sir. I generally do not share anything because primarily once you start sharing it, then there is no point speaking. People can straight away
Sure,
just
sir.
read from what
Just
is
to
in there.
confirm, that's it, sir.
No issue, no issue, no
That's
issue.
sure.
I'll
Thank you,
continue.
sir. Please carry.
No issue,
Please
sir. I'll continue from where I am. But I don't speak with any set standard, neither do I speak out of books or slide. I speak out of absolute activity-based experience which is happening here. So please appreciate and
Sure,
understand
sir.
what I'm
Thank you.
saying is the activity which is happening. No more it is a policy. By having continued from this activity which I was trying to tell, it is time now that Lok Vidya related activities come into the mainstream education, and it has been mentioned in national education policy that this to be taken as a credit-based course. So how do you take it as a credit-based course? This credit-based course, keep it in the back of your mind, has to come back into the mainstream, and how to get it into credit-based is something which we will discuss as we move ahead. So this is what is called as integration of general education to vocational education to school education. Mind you, we are yet to still come into complete integration, that is along with higher education also. So having moved ahead from here, we come to the next three, that is classes 6, 7 and 8. And that happens to be called as middle level. Now, middle level thing is very clearly a subject of discussion wherein there will be a wholesome integration of what we spoke just now of vocational education to general to school education to even higher education. So towards this, every higher education institute will be expected to carry out their duties as far as their responsibility towards society is concerned, what we call as community approach, societal approach, akin to the schemes such as Unnat Bharat Abhiyan. And this is where exactly these institutes would be taking on tier 2, tier 3 institutes. They would be taking on certain schools. They would be taking on many more institutions, educational as well as rural institutions, or for that matter, even certain departments towards aligning them to as to what is the necessity. And for this particular activity, when this happens, there will be larger exchanges between the institutions. I'm referring to, let us limit ourselves to talking between schools and higher education. There will be larger integration, there will be larger movement of faculty members, there will be movement of students, there will be movement from higher to schools, from school to higher institution. And this is how you enable a school student to frame up his mind towards taking up education as he moves ahead. When this happens, ladies and gentlemen, this is what is called as a wholesome integration, and this is one of the another very, very important mandates of the national education policy. This is exactly what is desired, and when this happens, you have to have a wholesome integration, and hence no one from now can actually say that there will be a differentiation between a general education and vocational education. So having moved from here, now we come to the last stage, and the last stage in the child's school career happens to be called as secondary education. Secondary education is from classes 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th. Here lies the bulk of activities which are flowing out of the national education policy. The issue is here primarily because of the fact that even at school level now, the matter has been discussed to such a level that the student now has multiple subjects at his disposal to pursue, and towards pursuing these multiple subjects, he can pick and choose his way of approaching ahead for his career. It is this what is called as multidisciplinary, to include even subjects such as artificial intelligence and robotics. If artificial intelligence and robotics as a subject has been incorporated even in school level, it needs to be understood that some amount of training has to be given. So that is what exactly AICTE has done. We have come into MOU with CBSE, and at AICTE level, we are providing them training towards emerging areas or disruptive technologies, or what we call as niche area technology. And this is being done with the intention of making the students that much more capable as when they move ahead to higher education, to have a seamless integration. That is what is the purpose which is being done here. What I am trying to say is that at every level I would be telling you as to what is the policy, and at the same time I will also tell you, to akin to this policy, what are the activities which have taken place. So having said this thing, let us now understand what is at higher education. Multidisciplinary immediately brings to our mind two very, very important aspects. One is multidisciplinary in academics, and number two is multidisciplinary in institutions. This is very important for each one of us to understand. Multidisciplinary in academics happens to be making sure that we move towards professional education. Professional education is something I would request everybody to go through in the NEP. There is a whole chapter on the professional education. And professional education implies that making our students undergo a holistic education, not a single discipline education, thereby making sure that our students are in a position to not only get employed, but even in a position to generate employment. That is what is called as professional education. National education policy also talks about giving this particular education a little bit feel and a feeler of agriculture, health and legal. If agriculture, health and legal also has to be included as part of the education system. How do we do it? Recollect when I told you that there is a Lok Vidya related activity to be kept as a credit based. This is exactly where how even this particular activity of introducing agriculture, health and legal also needs to be introduced as a credit based activity. How to do it a credit based activity? With the proposal, what has been done is all the activities which needs to be done will then be done in a system. The system is 40, 20, 20, 20. This is a hypothetic distribution of percentages which I'm speaking. There's no fixed guaranteed percentage breakdown. This is hypothetic. These can be addition plus minus 1, 2 up and down can happen, but this is a proposal wherein the first 40 happen to be core subjects, 20 core electives, then basic science and humanities, and then comes his open elective. Why this is being done this manner? This is being done in this manner is, please be very correct in your understanding, 40 and 20. The first two, these core subjects and core electives, still continue to have a primacy and importance as far as you and me are concerned in core. So the primacy of the core is still maintained. That is very important. And then comes is the second aspect, and the second aspect is the basic sciences and humanities. The basic sciences and humanities with 20 gives you a feel and an exposure of interdisciplinary, and the last 20 being open electives gives you multidisciplinary. That is exactly how you are going to do it. And with multidisciplinary, you can now bring in a credit-based activity or courses which can then be fit into this for the purposes of making it a professional education. This is where you can get in a credit-based activity of Lok Vidya. This is where you can get in a credit-based activity of agriculture, health and legal. This is where you can get in many more credit-based activity. Why only these? Get in universal human values, Indian knowledge system, Indian dance, Indian yoga, Indian music. You can have a plethora of activities towards attainment of overall credits, which needs to be done for the purposes of whether it's a diploma, PG diploma, certificate or a degree. That is how exactly it is being proposed. Again, mind you, this is a rough proposal distribution. Percentages can vary, and which should vary also, because it's at the discretion of every respective university or autonomous institute to take on their final call on the subject. However, for leading to multidisciplinarity, this is exactly what is the proposal. What is that now? Multidisciplinary institutions. Multidisciplinary institutions is some word which was the start point as when the national education policy was being written. One of the biggest drawbacks and the highlights which was observed in the current education system was that our education system is a highly fragmented education system. And having said the word fragmented education system, it implies that there were multiple standalone institutions or silos which were existing without any interaction, without correlation, without any collaboration between the two. And for this purposes, now the education system which will now be there will purely be multidisciplinary, and no standalone institute will be permitted. So multidisciplinary higher education institute will be there, one per that district, which each institute having minimum 3,000 students. Now it's very important to understand, once you are having a multidisciplinary higher educational institute, these multidisciplinary higher education institutes would be having their governing structure in place, which is called as, they would be having board of governors, academic council, management and departments. Why I am saying this? Even though it is so very well understood, I am saying this for a reason, and the reason as to why I am saying this is because it is these multidisciplinary higher education institute board of governors and academic councils who are supposed to be then going about in deciding various activities leading to grant of graded autonomy. Every multidisciplinary higher educational institute will be given graded autonomy, and if they have to be given graded autonomy, autonomy in education, mind you, ladies and gentlemen, implies freedom. Freedom means freedom in education, at least it comes about for academics, administration, finance, and expansion. Let us not talk of others. Let's talk of academics. Autonomy in academics means freedom to decide course, content, curriculum, offer, syllabi, credit, duration, methodology for offer, the flexibility, for that matter, even the credits. Now, this is where exactly speaking I'm talking. Whenever you talk of autonomy, never ever forget the word accountability. So these two words always move together. And once you're talking autonomy, please also appreciate very important word of national education policy, and that is multiple entry and multiple exit. Now, what is multiple entry and multiple exit? All of us know it, all of us understand it, that anybody can come and go into the system. This implies anybody who earlier could not pursue his education because of whatever reasons and had to take a break in between because of personal reasons or others, can now come back into the education and start from the same place with his credits retained intact. This is going to be having a major impetus toward increase in the gross enrollment ratio. And also for this, every higher educational institute, university or autonomous institute has now been brought under the ambit and mandate of academic bank of credit. The government has initiated academic bank of credit, which is also another activity as per the national education policy. Guidelines regulation to that has recently been taken out by UGC in concurrence with AICTE, and it is so very clear now that everybody can come inside. This is how exactly speaking you promote education, get back people back into the mainstream education. So this is what is the activities which are happening towards multidisciplinarity also. It is important at the same time to understand what has happened in the recent past. In the recent past, our education system has actually speaking seen a diverse change. All of a sudden, from the traditional education system, we went into an education, and for this particular purpose, the education immediately from a face-to-face has gone to online. But what is so very commendable and appreciable is that each one of you rose to the occasion, and the day it was announced, the very next day or in fact the same evening, education continued in online. That is to the credit which needs to be appreciated. But what needs to be understood is that online education is going to be staying. Online education is there to continue to stay. If online education is there, continue to stay. Today it is 40% credits which a student can take from online. Tomorrow how much, no one knows, but the online education will be there, and accordingly AICTE has allowed online and ODL education, and even in technical education we have allowed, and presently to commence with, we have said that online and ODL education can be there for subjects such as travel, logistics, tourism, MCA, and even engineering subjects such as artificial intelligence and data sciences, where the hands-on experience is minimal. This is a reasonable start. This is the fair start, but at least an attempt has been made to promote online and ODL. And this also, mind you, is going to be having a major contribution towards overall increase in the gross enrollment ratio. A lot of talks happen. All of us gets into a lot of conversation, a lot of talks as to whom this particular NEP is being addressed. Who is the target audience? Ladies and gentlemen, target audience is no one. Just take an equilateral triangle. There are three edges to it, and all the three corners, as we talk about, happens to be a faculty member, a student, and an institution. These are the prime stakeholders with multiple more stakeholders. But amongst these prime stakeholders also, as the national education policy sees professional education being imparted to students, it is the students who become the prime beneficiaries of NEP. And if students happen to be the prime beneficiaries of NEP, there is a full chapter on students as called as inclusive education. And towards this particular chapter, it is important for me to make each one of you understand 7 very important terms: access, equity, equality, autonomy, accountability, affordability, and quality. Let us quickly run through what are these, because bulk of them already are taking place. All that happens is we need to be combining, getting together, and then coming and speaking in the same language. Access is an opportunity or providing availability of each and every infrastructure, laboratory, tool, mechanism, and for today's time, even internet. Equality is no differentiation between any students on the respect of caste, culture, or religion or financial status. Equity is understanding that every student is different, every human being is different, and each one of us have our different needs and special requirements. Understanding the special needs and requirements and then focusing on each one of them. This is where the role of teacher becomes very important. AICTE, for that matter, has come out with very beautiful initiatives wherein we have taken up special schemes for Divyang students, and then we have taken up special schemes for students with learning disorders. These are two different categories. Multiple more schemes, beneficiaries, and scholarships on students, thereby making students come into the mainstream education. And as we move ahead, the next one happens to be autonomy. I spoke about autonomy. I spoke about accountability. At that point of time when I spoke, accountability was basically for the institutes, but here when I am speaking, accountability is for the faculty members, and hence accordingly, multiple schemes and initiatives towards making faculty members that much more capable towards their capacity building. Financially funded schemes, faculty development programs, research related activities, enhancements of professional qualification, gaining the best practices by traveling abroad or within the country, multiple initiatives and schemes. However, when you have all these things, you are also responsible to be accountable to the system, and hence AICTE's 360-degree feedback mechanism. Then comes his affordability. Affordability is very well understood, making the system that much more financially viable for making large number of section of the people to come into what we call it SEDG, socially economically deprived groups, to come back into the mainstream education. And then comes the last, and that is quality. Quality may be different for me, may be different for you. If I generally ask you understanding of quality, but in education, what is quality? In education, we cannot have a difference in understanding the terminology of quality, and hence in education, the quality happens to be gaining accreditation, and hence these multidisciplinary autonomous institutes will be mandatorily accredited. That is what exactly is the way ahead. That is what is exactly is the thought process of national education policy, and that is exactly where we all are collectively moving. End state of national education policy. The end state of national education policy, I was listening to your original talk also in the inauguration when it was being spoken. Yes, it is very true. India has to be at the global hub of education by 2035. And if India has to be at the global hub of education, all these activities combined together can only, with effort of each and every person, whether you are in a classroom, department, institute, or any other place, together only can take us there. What is extremely important immediately to understand, along with what we have spoken now, is another very important activity of projection of Indian education system abroad, what is called as global outreach or internationalization. There are multiple ways and means of this activity, some of them administrative, some of them academic. Let's focus on academic. If you recollect, in open electives, I use the word Indian knowledge system, universal human values, Indian dance, Indian music. Why was the word Indian being used? The word Indian was with a specific reason that should we introduce these into our mainstream education. We are going to be bringing in our moral values, culture. We are going to be bringing in wisdom of centuries, what we have learned from Vedas, into our education system, and hence term education system with a pride and proud that there is an Indianness into it. And yes, if we bring an Indianness into our education system, we will not only be in a position to attract foreign students, but we will also be in a position to make sure that our students do not go abroad for pursuing education, and hence accordingly we will be having multiple more students coming into the fold of the education. This is exactly what is the global outreach or internationalization of education all about. Now, please appreciate and understand simultaneously that after having done his complete education, the student is now in a correct frame of mind and now is ready to move ahead and mix with higher education. When I am talking higher education, the first people that is going to be interacting is going to be the faculty members. So this is where your role comes in extremely important. And please, each one of you also should be very well aware that the students of today, and when I'm talking today, please do not expect that this situation is going to come 12 to 15 years down the line. This situation is just round the corner. And when this situation is going to come round the corner, it is for us to understand that our students are that much more worldly wise and capable to understand, and hence becomes the role of faculty members that much important in understanding that what is the necessity. And hence two very important chapters. Number one chapter is about integration of technology, and number 2 chapter about teachers training or faculties training. Integration of technology is very important in today's terminology only because of a reason that the rapid pace at which technology is moving, it becomes mandatory for each one of us to continuously keep ourselves aligned to the technology in such a manner that we people are in a position to incorporate into our day-to-day teaching and learning activities. This is something which I would rather request every faculty member to immediately get into, because this is where your sustainability lies. This is exactly where your focus area should be. At national level, we are going to be having National Education Technology Forum, whose role is going to be continuously monitoring and scrutiny of the various e-platform, e-tools, e-activities, thereby moderating them and then offering it to our faculty members for the purpose of their capacity building. But ultimately, it is you people who is supposed to be then actually going ahead and doing it. Unless and until you do it, this whole thing is not going to be, moving ahead in the manner it will be desired. You have to find your own place. Each and every faculty has to find his place worthwhile for the purposes of contribution. That is what is the learning, and hence comes another last topic on faculty is happens to be teachers training or faculty training. Multiple activities, initiatives, what I told earlier, and in addition to it, National Initiative for Technical Teachers Training being the mandatory activity over faculty training. Ladies and gentlemen, you people would have understood, you people would have appreciated that the national education policy, what is being spoken, is not a policy just to be heard and be set aside. It's a policy which needs to be implemented in letter and principle at the national level, whereas every activity going about to make sure that this policy is implemented. And this is where we people should find our value, our place. Each one of us should be coming together for the purposes of contributing towards the implementable points of the national education policy. I take this opportunity once again to request everybody who is here today to please go back, go through the national education policy, what has been enunciated in the document. You people would be in a better position to understand as to where should the role and where should the focus be. Because unless and until each one of us is contributing, the policy is surely being implemented, but it will not be moving in the right direction because it has to be a cohesive activity. And my sincere advice to every teacher who is there today, every faculty member who is connected with me here today, make sure that you are very much part of collective growth. Make sure that you are very much part of collective movement towards making India a global hub of education. It's very important for me to also tell you what is at the national level. At the national level, we will be having a body called as AICTE, Higher Education Commission of India, who would be governing all aspects of education other than medical and legal. Below that, there will be 4 verticals: NHERC, National Higher Education Regulatory Council, all activities of regulation. Second is going to be General Education Council, which will be the professional standard setting bodies. And this will be continuously monitoring all curriculum course content as per industrial and international needs and requirements. All present councils like Veterinary Council, Pharmacy Council, Council of Architecture will form part of GEC. Third is going to be the HEGC, Higher Education Grants Council. This will be a single body responsible for grant. Alongside, there is going to be National Research Foundation, which will be the body responsible for the release of research. And last but not the least, there's going to be NAC, National Accreditation Council, which will be carrying out the accreditation and related activities. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. It was an absolute pleasure talking to you. I hope my talk has been that much beneficiary to you people towards understanding as to what is national education policy all about. It was basically an insight, a broad insight into the national education policy, a broad activity-based discussion which went into the national education policy and its various activities. I would implore to everybody that this being a session on NEP which was taken, quite obviously we at AICTE are still implementing. We are in the process of giving recommendation. If any one of you has any recommendation suggestions, any one of you have any value added point which you feel can be given as a constructive point to be taken ahead, you can mail me, you can WhatsApp me. We will surely be having a thank you. Thanks a lot. Pleasure interacting. It was a great honor for me to be joining this particular platform. and then be speaking on the subject which is so very, very important. I sincerely thank everybody who gave me a chance to be speaking. And Bhagyashri, Dr. Bhagyashri, the Dean Research, I do thank you for giving me a chance to be coming here and speaking. ATME College of Engineering, Mysuru, thank you once again. Best wishes to everybody. Have a great day and a pleasant morning. And by the way, have a happy new year to each one of you. Thank you and Jai Hind.
Thank you. Thank you so much, sir. Dear participants, feedback link will be shared in the chats. Please submit the feedback form. Thank you.
Hello, the participants who would like to ask any doubts or clarifications needed can raise your hand and we'll unmute you. You can speak because the chat box is presently not functioning there. You can just raise your hand and we can just unmute you. You can go ahead and ask your questions. Thank you.
Dear participants, the next session will start at 1 p.m. Okay. So meanwhile, the link will be shared now. So please fill that, go through that form, fill the form and submit it. So the next session will start at 1 p.m. So the session will be on education, the panacea. So the expert will be Swami Veereshananda Swami, Saraswati Swamiji. Thank you, Venkat.